The battle has been joined. No nation will be permitted to brutally assault its neighbor.
There's guns and there's more explosions on the western edge of the city. Wow, what a sight.
Operation Desert Storm began with a wave of more than 100 Tomahawk cruise missiles launched from U.S. Navy surface ships against targets deep inside Iraq. Coalition aircraft operating ashore and from 6 Navy aircraft carriers began around-the-clock bombing. During the first day of the war, 15 different types of aircraft from 5 nations flew more than 1,000 sorties, with Navy pilots striking their targets deep inside Iraq. Forward deployed American naval forces led the Allied effort to put a stranglehold on Iraqi commerce during the months that followed the brutal invasion of Kuwait. Now it was time to sweep the Iraqi Navy from the Persian Gulf, to take the war to the enemy by air, by land, by sea. Maritime power and the Navy Marine Corps team displayed great flexibility in support of U.S. Central Command joint operations. Two battleships and a 31-ship amphibious task force were among 120 U.S. Navy ships in the region, first on the scene with sustained combat power, poised to execute the President's orders. 75,000 sailors labored 24 hours a day to take total control of the Red Sea, Arabian Sea, and Persian Gulf. It was the nation's largest deployment of naval power since World War II.
Go, go, go!
Ashore, the 74,000 Marines of the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force moved to forward positions. Nearly 18,000 additional Marines were embarked aboard 33 amphibious ships, part of air-ground amphibious task forces that pinned down 10 Iraqi divisions waiting for a seaborne invasion. While the technical wizardry of Patriot batteries proved an effective defense against Scud attacks, their proficiency was mirrored at sea. New generations of naval weapons proved their precise capability, including the first combat launches of Tomahawk cruise missiles from submerged submarines, the USS Louisville and USS Pittsburgh. The Standoff Land Attack Missile, or SLAM, fired from carrier-based A-6 Intruder and A-7 Corsair II aircraft, hit home with telling effect. These same planes, launched from the flight decks of the carriers Midway, Theodore Roosevelt, Ranger, America, Saratoga, and John F. Kennedy, also delivered their laser-guided bombs and other munitions on target.
It's gone. The lights are out.
Operation Desert Storm also provided the first combat test of remotely piloted vehicles, or RPVs. These pilotless aircraft circled the enemy around the clock, transmitting live video and targeting information to Marine artillery units and battleships. As a result, gunnery officers could watch on television as their 1-ton shells hit enemy targets more than 20 miles away. The versatility of the FA-18 Hornet was graphically demonstrated during one strike mission over Iraq. A group of 5 Hornets from Fighter Squadron 81 embarked on USS Saratoga were loaded with 2,000-pound Mark 84 bombs destined for an Iraqi airfield. When the lead Hornet detected 2 MiG-21s 7 miles away, it switched from its bombing profile to engage and shoot down both enemy aircraft with Sidewinder and Sparrow missiles. On any given day, Navy and Marine Corps air crews flew more than 1/3 of all U.S. airstrikes, many in darkness to exploit enemy weaknesses.
I hit my target. Did you? Yeah, it was real good.
Meanwhile, U.S. naval surface forces took total sea control, sinking more than 25 Iraqi ships and disabling scores of others. On the 3rd day of the war, the guided missile frigate Nicholas teamed up with a Kuwaiti frigate and U.S. Army helicopters to engage Iraqi forces operating from offshore Kuwaiti oil platforms. Joint Navy and Marine Corps operations launched from USS Kurtz liberated the first patch of Kuwaiti territory early in the war. Kurtz successfully navigated mine-infested waters to attack Iraqi soldiers on the island of Kura. Working with Navy A-6 intruders, the island was captured in 6 hours. In the process, one Iraqi minesweeper was sunk and another was destroyed by its own mine while attempting to flee. The Kurtz rescued 22 survivors from the water. Early success in the war at sea was a direct reflection of our well-established maritime superiority, the readiness and professionalism of the U.S. Armed Forces, and the special capabilities of the Navy and Marine Corps team.
One thing that is always inherent with a battle group is that we're self-contained for a sizable period of time. We've got our ordnance, we've got our food, we've got our fuel, and I think the deterrent value that represents will always be important.
Since the inception of the U.S. Middle East Force in 1949, the Navy and Marine Corps team has sustained a positive military-to-military relationship in the Persian Gulf. And Secretary of Defense Dick Cheney sounded the need for a continued naval presence in the region.
But I would clearly envision that we'll have a more robust naval presence out there than we've had in the past. We've been in the Gulf with naval forces since 1949, so that's not a new presence, but it may be a significantly larger presence than it was before.
For the first time since the Korean War, battleships Missouri and Wisconsin swung into action, sending their 1-ton, 16-inch projectiles nearly 20 miles inland against Iraqi fortifications. In one 60-hour period, USS Missouri fired more than 1 million pounds of ordnance in support of U.S. Marine Corps and coalition ground forces.
The battleship's bread and butter is the 16-inch guns and naval gunfire support. We're up here doing what we've been trained to do and what we do best, and that's support the ground forces ashore.
While stories of battleships and smart bombs topped the network news, Navy SEALs were secretly conducting operations in and around occupied Kuwait. The highly trained SEALs were involved in all phases of operations, including the dismantling of underwater mines, strategic reconnaissance, the boarding and search of merchant vessels, and combat search and rescue.
Merchant vessel, this is U.S. Navy warship, Channel 16.
Throughout the war, the Navy's Maritime Intercept Force continued to enforce the United Nations trade embargo. By the end of March, more than 8,500 merchant ships had been challenged, with over 1,000 boarded by Navy Coast Guard teams. 47 merchant vessels were diverted. The maritime interdiction cut off 95% of Iraq's imports, 100% of its exports, and cut its gross national product in half. The first major ground confrontation took place just 2 weeks after the outbreak of war. Iraqi forces crossed the Kuwaiti border and took control of Khafji, an abandoned coastal city. U.S. Marines and coalition forces regained control of the town after 12 hours of fierce fighting.
We observed a bunch of enemy armored personnel carriers kind of like clustered together at an intersection. We called in a fire mission with supporting artillery. We were calling them in very close to our position. We knew that, but we also knew we had to take out those APCs.
During the attack, 11 Marines were killed in action, the first ground combat casualties of the war. Iraqi mines posed a constant hidden danger, demanding the highest vigilance by lookouts and watchstanders. By early March, more than 150 mines had been located and destroyed. The Explosive Ordnance Disposal Detachment aboard USS Missouri destroyed 5 mines.
You know that that mine is designed for death and destruction, and while you're out there, you're going to be a big part of that if you mess up. And in a way, I guess you can say you've cheated death. If not cheated death, you possibly kept a ship from being dead in the water or taken out of action.
During Allied minesweeping operations, 2 U.S. Navy ships were damaged when they struck Iraqi mines. The Tripoli had a 16-foot hole blasted in her hull, but continued her minesweeping duties for 4 days before steaming into port for repairs.
Everybody knew what to do. There was no panic. Everybody knew exactly where to go. Training, training, training. We complain about it, we complain about it. You come right down the bottom line and you need it. That's your best training.
The USS Princeton suffered structural damage and had to be towed to port. In all, 7 were injured, 1 seriously. Strategic Sealift forces, including fast sealift, pre-positioned, and ready reserve force ships, were ready as planned and kingpins to the support of Desert Storm operations. This was Strategic Sealift of historic proportions, encompassing nearly 250 ships, delivering more than 18 billion pounds of equipment and fuel by the end of January. More than 95% of all supplies were sent by sea, with the average voyage about 8,700 miles, the farthest in history.
Let me have your attention. You're going to go through the mobilization process.
The total force concept proved highly successful, as Naval and Marine Corps reservists provided critical skills wherever and whenever needed. By mid-February, the Navy and Marine Corps had mobilized more than 45,000 reservists for up to 1 year. In medicine, reservists helped man the hospital ships Mercy and Comfort. 3 Navy field hospitals were deployed and staffed with the help of reserve Seabees and medical personnel. The Seabees also worked around the clock to construct roads, buildings, and runways. Regulars and reservists worked closely to provide constant surveillance of key ports, harbors, and waterways. The Navy also provided critical support in the areas of combat search and rescue, cargo handling, naval control of shipping, intelligence, public affairs, and logistical support. By the end of the first month of the war, joint service and combined operations completely dominated Iraq in the air and at sea, setting the stage for ground operations.
The liberation of Kuwait has now entered a final phase, to eject the Iraqi army from Kuwait.
Flying sea-based combat support missions for the first time, Marine AV-8B Harriers joined Navy A-6 Intruders and FA-18s as they pounded frontline positions. Marines and other ground forces quickly breached Iraqi defensive lines and easily outflanked the Republican Guard.
Can't say enough about the 2 Marine divisions. If I use words like brilliant, it would really be an under-description of the absolutely superb job that they did in breaching the so-called impenetrable barrier.
After 38 days of precision bombing, U.S. and Allied ground forces swept through Iraq in less than 100 hours, obliterating what was once the world's 4th largest army.
Well, they just collapsed. They didn't have the will to fight.
Marines were cheered by men, women, and children as they entered Kuwait City, freeing it from the horrors of Iraqi occupation.
Well, we've had a tremendous success, and I couldn't be happier or more proud of the Marines and the soldiers that fought with us.
With the Iraqi war machine now in ruins, President Bush ordered a ceasefire.
And as president, I can report to the nation, aggression is defeated, the war is over.
Victory didn't come without sacrifice. U.S. losses included 126 killed in action and an additional 82 non-combat related casualties. U.S. fixed-wing and helicopter losses numbered 60, with nearly half resulting from non-combat mishaps.
This victory belongs to the finest fighting force this nation has ever known in its history.
Our prisoners of war arrived home to the cheers and hugs of family and friends. The senior prisoner of war, Air Force Colonel David Eberly, praised the conduct of all the POWs.
The conduct during captivity of the ladies and gentlemen beside me has been without question. Their sense of honor and duty to country has been beyond reproach.
Your country is opening its arms to greet you. In this rare moment in the life of our nation, let me speak for all Americans and thank you and all your fellow soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines for a job well done.
We're coming home now, proud, confident, heads high.
Oh, say.